Hello from Malta. Good evening, and good evening to Bakara as well. I hope that's the right pronunciation. Okay, it looks like we're all pretty much here, so I will kick it off and reintroduce myself. I'm Shane Murphy from IT Masters. I do sales and marketing and things here, and I'm with Chantel Hale, our CEO. How are you tonight, Chantel?
Good evening, everyone. I'm pretty good. I hope you're well as well, Shane, and thank you for everyone for joining.
No worries. Yes, I am quite good, and let's see if I can make this go. There we go. Let's talk about this. Who on earth are IT masters? We've been doing this for over 20 years now. In fact, we had our 20-year anniversary a couple of years ago. We only do online masters and postgraduate courses with Charles Sturt University and primarily in IT and IT adjacent fields like project management and an MBA, which is very IT focused. We've been doing this, as we said, for 22 odd years, nearly 23 now. And for nearly all of that time, we've been the biggest provider of online postgraduate domestic IT students. I will say for everybody from overseas, I should point this out at this point as well, that this is primarily, our courses are primarily aimed at Australian domestic students. You're more than welcome to enroll and to do them internationally, but they don't qualify for any visa points or anything like that. So they're not like a normal international recruiting process. That little graph there on the right, when we're talking about being the largest provider, it just shows you a little bit about where we've been the last 5 years. So that's our total student numbers. Every now and again, we have somebody that beats us for a particular year. Like you can see that this university here had a big year. That was during the middle of COVID. And we suspect that they just said everybody was an online postgraduate student that year. But I think last year, somebody actually snuck ahead of us by about 40 or 50 students as well. But overall, what you can see as specialists, we've been doing this for a long time and we're always in this top quadrant here. And then other people go up and down as they lose focus and gain focus. I think it's because as a university partner, we don't have a whole pile of university buildings to worry about. We've always been online. We started being online back when it was dial up, and we continue to be online, and that's our bread and butter. So that's what we like to do. It's also the model that we provide is a very unique partnership with our partner university, Charles Sturt University, who are based in regional New South Wales. We do everything half-half with them. We look after all the marketing and most of the student recruitment. They look after providing the infrastructure and the actual degrees. We do half the subjects, they do half the subjects. So it is a unique course in that it's very industry focused. 50% of the subjects you do are actually taught to you by people who work every day in the industry. So, for example, some of our cyber lecturers are CISOs at various organizations or are consultants having been CISOs. So you've got people who are telling you like it is because they have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. And on the other side, you also have a very strong academic background from Charles Sturt. We also have something a little bit different in the way we approach our students, and that is that we call it being very student focused and very student oriented. Um, I know that just sounds like marketing guff, but it tends to be how we actually operate. We tend to be people that look after what you need. We tend to think about the sort of criteria that you're concerned about, and we try and work things from the point of view that we understand that you're busy people with lives of your own, you're mid-career, you're doing other things. That's when you want to do postgraduate as a general rule of thumb. And so we try and do our best to facilitate that. So that's a little bit about us. Tell me, Chantel, why would you want to study for your master's in IT?
Um, well, if we go to the next one, the next slide there, thank you. You can see there that that first point is earning more. So master's graduates earn more on average. That is a really easy one to decide as a reason to do your master's. But also it is one of those things where if it's on your resume and you're applying for jobs and there are, 50 resumes that they're sorting through, sometimes they will just decide to sort through based on who has what qualifications. And a master's one is a really good one that sticks your resume out from the pack, if that's what they're looking for. And I do think it can be really useful in that way. But also, it is one of those really helpful things to equip you for leadership roles in that a lot of people work in IT. They started working in IT because they're interested in it and they have an aptitude for it. But then to move up past a certain rung on the ladder, they need something more. They need something that tells the powers that be that they have that skill and that knowledge. And sometimes that is a qualification, but also the skills we give you. And I do think one of the really useful things that we are aiming to give students is those real life work skills. So a lot of our assessments are things like, okay, come up with an incident management response plan here, but you have to make it align with what would be accepted in the real world. And then because our mentors, and we'll talk a little bit more about this soon, because our mentors often work in real IT specific jobs or jobs that are useful to these qualifications, it means that they can say, hey, in a workplace, if you submitted this, I would say, this bit here doesn't really quite work. And then we've got that area of deeper knowledge in certain areas, and then you have that qualification embeds that knowledge into your experience. So it's easy to say to a prospective employer, hey, I have knowledge in cloud computing in this area. But it's a lot better if you can say, and I've studied this at university and I have a qualification that goes along with it. So it's a really good way to embed that knowledge so that prospective employers know that you have it, and that it can make your resume stand out from the pack, or just make you stand out from the pack in your current position that you're in. And then just it's nice to extend and challenge yourself in that way so that you're learning about things that maybe you didn't already know about. Maybe you're talking to people within the industry, because most of our students are working in the IT industry, and you can make some contact with people who might be really useful for you, but also just might give you information that's really useful in the future.
Absolutely. And it's interesting looking at the graph. That graph's now a year or two old, but you should probably, if you're interested, have a quick look at the Charles Sturt website at some point, because they have a number of different stats up at various points in time about how I think it's a high 80% of their postgraduate students go straight into employment or get a better job than the one they've got when they move along in some of those nationwide stats. So it is, it is important to have your masters. But why would you bother coming to study with ITM and Charles Sturt? And we say both together because it is always both of us together. For an example, in 2024, so last year, and it was awarded this year, our cybersecurity student, Lauren Veenstra, won the Charles Sturt University Medal for Overall Achievement. That's quite an achievement because it doesn't just reflect that they were very good academically. It is also about the fact that they're involved in the university. They sat on committees, they sat on the university senate, they spoke to a lot of other students. And it does show that as an online student, you're able to do all of those things. So we're really proud of people like Lauren. We've had a lot of great students come out of our courses over the years that are doing amazing things as they go into their careers and continue on. And they often come back and study with us 2 or 3 times. As I was saying earlier, we do try and look after our students. We try and keep in touch. This is not about hand holding. It's about recognizing that you have a life and you're busy, and studying is often your second or third priority between after family and work. And so therefore we try and make it easy for you to continue with that and to do the best and to, make the best of the opportunity when you've got it there. Our students as a group are fantastic people. They've really got interesting things to say. I see it even in things like our free short courses, which we'll talk more about later on, that a lot of the stuff that comes up in the chat is really interesting and often ahead of where our lecturer might be at that particular time, because we're always dealing with people who are working in the industry as well. So a lot of people give back as much as they learn when they're actually doing it. And we can say that, as an average sort of thing, our students tend to score a little bit higher on average than across Charles Sturt's other postgraduate courses, and they tend to finish their courses more often and get through so they're much more dedicated. They're ready to come to what they need to do. So let's have a think. And we've been talking about our students. Let's talk about our mentors, which is what we call our lecturers.
Yeah, I do think our mentors is one of the strongest draws that students should be paying attention to, because they are really excellent, and most of them are working within the industry. They know what you need to be producing in the real world in order to have a good impact on your career, and what people are expecting every day. So we never wanted students to leave our qualifications and to enter the real world and people to be like, great, we've got to do do a lot of training with this person because they're a graduate. We want people to either leave our courses, well, we want everyone to leave our courses with a lot more knowledge about the real world, and the real world cybersecurity industry and networking and etc. than they came in with. But also at the same stage, we want them to be able to use their own current skills, because a lot of our students are working in the industry and they get to provide that feedback, because at a master's level, nobody knows literally everything. Our mentors know a lot. They know, so much about the topics they're talking about. But if anyone comes to you and says, yeah, I know literally everything about AWS or something, I would I would probably approach that with a grain of salt. So, for those of you who don't know, our courses are built 50-50 industry academic split. Half of our courses are what we call industry subjects. They're designed and delivered by our team masters. A lot of them are based around our industry qualifications, and they're taught by our industry mentors. They work full time within the IT industry and then teach part time of an evening, so that people who are working within the industry, we're trying to cater to them. And then the other half are the CSU subjects. We call those the academic subjects. Often they have more of an academic bent. They're more designed to meet those criterias. It means that you get not only top flight industry practitioners and knowledge, but also theoretical grounding and that academic basis that can be really useful as you study. So we've got industry mentors who are CISOs at major companies Australia-wide, or senior technical staff in well-known industry vendors, or consultants who've worked for just about everyone in their careers, and they can give you real hands-on knowledge instead of just only having somebody who's only worked or majority worked in the academic area, which is really useful, but not everything. So we want to give you the best of both worlds.
I think also if you've done any of our short courses, you may well have seen these gentlemen in particular, giving a couple of them over the last few years. But I would encourage you to have a look if you haven't already. I also, looking at these, it reminds me that I think some of these were taken a little while ago, and we should get some updated photos of our mentors as well. They've been working with us for a little while, on and off, as they do different things. So, for example, George is there. I think that's probably taken when he graduated as a master's student. He's now got a doctorate and he's running his own consultancy after having worked for a couple of, quite a few major organizations over the years. So he's a little bit
Yes,
older
either
now.
George has been aging particularly well, or we need to get a new photo.
Yes, the same with Jeremy, who is a very senior executive in one of our electricity companies as well.
Mm.
Anyway, let's tell us about our courses.
Yeah, so we have courses in a wide range of IT fields. That's our specialty. We're IT masters and we are masters in IT areas. Um, the most popular one, and the one that I think I'm most proud of, is that Master of Cybersecurity, and all of our masters have a graduate certificate attached to it as well, but cybersecurity also has a grad dip now. And for those of you who don't know, a master's with us is 12 subjects and a graduate certificate is 4 subjects. And our articulated graduate certificates move into our masters with full credit. But so we've got Masters of Cybersecurity, which is, we like to say, it's very cutting edge. We make sure that we are looking at the most current, but also the most used products to teach these ones. We've also got cloud computing and virtualization, and you can see the Master of Networking and Systems Administration. Networking and Systems Administration is our oldest course, and cloud computing is along a similar vein, with just more of a focus on cloud computing, but they are both in those really key areas there. We've also got the Master of Project Management, and that one has like with all the other masters, a graduate certificate, but also a graduate diploma. And that one is a project management master's that is, of course, skewed towards IT, which I do think is really useful for our students. We've got that Master of Business Administration Computing. So you get an MBA qualification, but you also can focus on a certain specialization. So you could have an MBA, but with a focus on cybersecurity, which means that half of your subjects are going to be cybersecurity focused, which if you're a cybersecurity expert, that can be really valuable for you because MBAs are pretty valuable. I know I keep harping on about what's on your resume, but I do think it's pretty useful for people these days. And having an MBA there is, I think, has its own power and value there. And so we've got that computing specialization. And then up the top there, we've got the graduate certificate in computing career transition. This is graduate certificate, as I said, for subjects, and it is based on basically all of our subjects. So you can do a little bit of a taster there, find out what you like, what area you want to go into. If you do want to do this, it's a great idea, but I can recommend speaking to our eligibility experts or to even just our admin staff to plan it out so that if you think maybe I want to go into one of the other masters, plan out, make sure you're doing the right subjects so that you get the right amount of credit and you don't study something that doesn't give you credit unless you really want to.
I think it's really interesting to just skip back to the MBA and to reiterate some of the things that you were saying about that, Chantel, in that the structure of our MBA is, as far as I'm aware, unique. I don't think anybody else does an MBA that's split in quite that same way. And there's no doubt that an MBA itself is it has slightly more weight unless you're going for a technical role. If you're up for a role that's a management type role, an MBA is going to carry more weight than a master of cybersecurity or networking because they show that you're an expert in your field, and MBA shows that you're an expert in business. And being able to have some expertise in your field built into that MBA is quite a powerful weapon, we believe. And so we are very proud also of our MBA. And in fact, I'm sort of surprised that more people don't do it. Our Master of Cybersecurity is very popular, as Chantel said, but the MBA certainly gives you a very rounded education and a very good look at other things you can be doing in the business sphere. I can see that Nandini's asked, do we get credit for graduate certificates? Yes, the graduate certificates give you the subjects you do in your graduate certificate pass through to the relevant masters. So as Chantel was saying, it's very good to speak to our course advisors about those sorts of things so that you can map it out the best way you can for you. If the grad cert in computing, I think, is that articulated to anywhere? You do get credit for it, but is it properly articulated? No.
It's not articulated. And when we say articulated, what we mean is you will get credit for the grad cert in computing if you move from the grad cert in computing to one of the masters. But for the articulated courses, which have basically the same name but with grad cert instead of masters, it means that those don't count under the credit limit. And we're going to talk about credit soon. But government regulations mean you can only get 50% of a course credit. But for instance, if you do the grad cert in cybersecurity and then move into the Master of Cybersecurity, those 4 subjects you did in the grad cert do not count towards the Master of Cybersecurity credit limit.
But
There's
they
a
are
whole lot confusing.
recognized.
They are recognized. That's the whole thing. It means that you've got 2 qualifications basically for the price of 1. And I am spoiling some of the slides that Shane's going to speak to anyway. I'm sorry, Shane. But it does mean that you get to keep up with that credit. And we're going to talk a little bit about credit, about all the different ways you can do it, while at the same stage still studying those 2 qualifications, and having that on your resume again is really helpful.
This is a little bit about what I was alluding to when I say we really try and look after our students, in that there's a bit of an art to planning your course out in advance. And a lot of universities just assume you're going to do it by yourself. We take a reasonably active role in suggesting, pathways and ways you can do things. And as Chantel, we'll probably talk a little bit more about it further up, but it is something that's well worth having a chat to either our eligibility person or some of our course advisors to try and map that out and get the best out of it so that you finish faster and also able to, pay less money effectively. And Emmanuel's asked me to clarify that again. So what Chantel was saying is, that the grad cert in cybersecurity absolutely counts towards your master's degree. What it doesn't do is take away from your ability to get external credits for 50% of your course. We'll talk more about that in a minute, Emmanuel. So just hang on. And but yes, it absolutely does count towards it, but in a different way.
Apologies if I was confusing.
No, I don't think you were. I think it's quite a complex sort of thing. As I said, it is a little bit arcane. So what I thought we would just spend 5 seconds talking about, because we don't really blow our trumpets a lot about things like this. We've just released, literally as in this is our first session with it, a new graduate diploma in cybersecurity. Now you might say, ho hum, that's just the course that fits in between the graduate certificate and the master's. And that is true to a greater degree than you might expect. However, there are some significant differences and some things that make it important and why we did it. Just so that you know, the graduate diploma is 8 subjects. So grad cert 4, graduate diploma 8, master's 12. So it's midway between those two things. It means that you can enter into the graduate diploma straight away if you've got the relevant qualifications or experience. And also, if you've done a graduate certificate, you can go on and do a graduate diploma and again be fully counted towards the course total. So you could do 4 subjects in your graduate certificate of cybersecurity and then only have 4 left to do in your graduate diploma. And so that way, that it's fully articulated is what we call that. It's a complete set. There are some differences though, and the differences are really good things generally. Number one is we've launched a new internship option, and we're working with selected cyber-focused businesses and departments at the moment. We're interviewing various people to see if they're willing to take on our interns. It will have limited places because it's going to depend upon obviously how many people want to do the internship and also where and who we can get to run the places. Particularly in cybersecurity, we have to be very careful. There may be requirements such as security clearances or working with children checks or all sorts of different things that you may, police checks that you may well be asked to get if you run the internship. The idea about those is they're for people that don't work in the industry already. You might have done a graduate certificate in computing career transition and then want to move into the grad dip in cybersecurity. This gives you an opportunity a bit to demonstrate some of the things that you've been able to learn. At the moment, it's running once a year in our March session, the biggest session that we have. It's 2 days per week in the business for approximately 12 weeks. And on top of being in the business, and they have to have a training plan for you as well. So there's a bit of work required of the business, even though they don't pay you or pay any money for being part of the program, and neither do you. It's just a normal subject. That's the only fee. You also get some personalized coaching from one of the mentors who was on the page a couple of pages ago, Brenton, and he talks to you about how best to work within that industry and so on and so forth. And that's really also very important, we think. So the idea is to give a really well-rounded internship experience to address the sort of issues that we see coming up with cyber, where people graduate from our graduate certificates and even the masters and then get told that they don't have any experience, so they have to start right down the bottom of the tree. This is designed to say, well, here's some experience in the world's best situation. You might look at it as a 12-week job interview in some respects, because I'm sure that lots of these people will be wanting to recruit as well over a period of time. But, that's not an expectation you could necessarily march in with, but it's something to keep in back of your mind. The other part of the internship as well is that you will have to have completed at least 2 cyber subjects before you are allowed to do the internship. There's no point doing an internship if you know absolutely nothing. So we'd like you to have a minimum of 2 subjects. A number of our students that'll be doing the grad dip will have already come from a graduate certificate with the 4 weeks, 4 subjects, I should say, before they actually go on and do this. I've put the URL for it down there so you can actually have a look at the subject online. There's one other slight difference as well with the program. There's a new subject called ITC, or it's not a new subject, it's new to cybersecurity as a core subject, and that's the ITC 506, which is Topics in Ethics in IT. And Charles Cert want everybody to have an ethical outlook. So it is the one non-cybersecurity subject that you absolutely will need to do. And that is part of the graduate diploma in cybersecurity, and eventually will also be part of the master's. So this is a new course. We're very excited about it. It means that if you've done your grad cert and you're not quite ready to do your master's, you can actually get a graduate diploma, because as much and all as we love graduate certificates, they don't have quite the sex appeal, shall we say, as a master's. And a graduate diploma does have a lot more than a graduate certificate in terms of the job market and your resume, etc. Is this internship unique to the graduate diploma and only for March Tech? It is unique to the graduate diploma in cybersecurity. There is an option to do an internship in our graduate program in career transition, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to do the cyber component within that. That's more focused on more general IT criteria, because as well you would have to have the 2-subject minimum. And if you're doing the grad cert in career transition, then you probably wouldn't have had the 2 subjects done already. But please talk to our course advisors about those things. And we're not able to provide a big list of companies that have previously had internship positions, because this is new for us. This particular internship we're running now is new to cybersecurity, but we are talking to some well-respected small, medium, and large organizations as well. I will say also that the positions are likely to be in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, or potentially Canberra, because there seems to be a lot of cyber companies in Canberra. It's probably not preferable to do it online, although we may be able to negotiate that option as well, because this is one of the times where we think that being online might not be quite as valuable as the others. There might be something for Perth. It just depends if we get a host company for Perth. We've put the calls out. If somebody puts their hand up, we'd be very interested. I know that we did have somebody in the Northern Territory put their hand up, and somebody in Adelaide, but certainly the bulk of the places will be in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane. And that's realistically where the bulk of our students are from these days as well. Okay, enough about cybersecurity. The other thing that we probably should talk a little bit about is our philosophy. The idea of what we do with IT Masters is to try and create some sort of pathway for you from being an intern by the, even prior to the internship position that we're doing ourselves, but up to being a CIO or a CISO or etc. And so what we try and do is we say, okay, we've got these 3 short courses here, which I'll talk about a little bit later. They run for 4 weeks online when they're running live, but you can also do them when they're being held already, and do them anytime. They're on YouTube, and you can enroll in them and do the quizzes and everything. So that gives you a little bit of a taste of what we do. The short courses are very similar to our master's courses. In fact, they often use a lot of the same material and cover small chunks of particular subjects. Then also you might do things like study industry certifications. Like you could do you could be doing CISM or CISP or AWS or Microsoft Azure, all sorts of different things. We also have just recently got into the market a little bit in that we sell some of the certification exams and also online learning. We've got Certified Ethical Hacker at the moment, and also the CompTIA range. And we're in the middle of, in fact, we're pretty close to getting a deal with some of the other big ones that I've mentioned by name as well. So as more people come on board, we'll release more of those subjects. You can just buy them online at our store. But the idea is then, you've done a bit of free stuff, you've done a bit of industry certs, which are really good for your reputation and for what you do in your work. Then you might at some point do a graduate certificate in your area, or do a career transition one. Then eventually you might expand to a graduate diploma or a master's. Along the way, in doing those things, and we'll talk more about this later on, but we give you credits for some of the things that you've done along the way. So our free short courses can give you a credit. You can get a credit from doing some of the industry certifications. We actually run a big program where we check them all out. We'll talk a bit more about that as well. And then later on, you might do a master's or a graduate diploma, but you might also do the MBA because you want to get into a more senior management and have exposure to those sorts of subjects. So the idea is that we're sort of trying to think about how you can not be a student for life, but you can keep coming back to the well and dip in and build upon something that you've already done, knowing that we have a rough idea of where you're going and we're on board the same journey, if you like, with you. Okay, Chantel, tell me about
Now,
eligibility.
yes, so eligibility, and we've mentioned it a few times, but one of the key things that I never want our students to do is to study with us and then realize, oh, I accidentally studied the wrong subject and I didn't know that I could have got credit for it, or I could have not studied it in some other way, and then to have wasted time and money. I know that studying is never actually a waste, but also I understand that everyone has limited time and availability. So I am going to call it a bit of a waste if you study a subject that you didn't need to for your qualification. So in entering our courses, if you don't have an undergraduate qualification, if you don't have any tertiary education, that's fine. You can get in via eligibility with experience and your own current knowledge. Great. It's really exciting. But if you're not sure if you have that knowledge, that experience, we have this Am I eligible form in which what our eligibility officer, Anna, will read through your experience and be able to call you and tell you, or email and tell you exactly whether you're eligible or not, or what you need to do to become eligible. It means that you can work out not only whether you can get into the qualifications, but what credit you can be looking at. So that you can apply for the course knowing that, okay, I've got 4 subjects credited in a master's. That saves me that time and money. I don't have to worry about that. And we can then sort that out while you're applying or even while you're studying. And then once you have actually applied and gone through that process, the admissions processing is done by our local ITM team, who will contact you if you're missing any documentation so that you can get that credit that you need to be applied to your course. But also it means that you've got some human beings that you can call up and speak to, or email and arrange to, who will map out your entire course for you if you'd like that, and tell you what subjects you should start with, and how to plan out your time for this. And you can even say, hey, I'm expecting a baby to be born next year in May. How can I plan out my time so that I'm making the best use of my time here, and that I'm not interrupting that experience? So we've got people ready to answer your calls, phone or email, or on the chat, or whatever it is. And I always say I would prefer you to call our admin people 85 times to double check something, rather than accidentally study a subject that you already know anyway and you don't need to study. So filling out the eligibility form will mean that you get to speak to a human being who will help you plan out your study in the next, you can say, okay, I want to study my grad cert, and then I want to take 6 months off, and then I want to study my master's, and they will help you plan that out so that you don't have to look at what subjects are available when and decide how you want to do things. We're happy to make those decisions, or to talk you through that with you.
I think our course advisors can spend quite a bit of time doing course mapping. As I said, it's a little bit of an art. So just so that you're aware, we're well over halfway, so bear with us. Just thought we'd talk a little bit about this, your journeys. We've talked about it in round terms before. You come in via relevant work experience, or you've got undergrad or a postgrad qualification. You do our free short courses off here. We should actually put this to certifications down here as well on this graphic and update it. And then you go through, you do your grad cert, maybe you do a grad diploma in the middle for some of the courses, and you do the masters. The idea is that our course advisors are there to try and help you streamline that process. I saw that somebody was asking a question about CSP before. We have had CSP courses in the past. That sadly seems to have ended for us just now. And we have in the past been able to advise ways that you could use CSP courses to get towards your master's at a far more, you know, exciting cost and help get you through the thing quicker. We also find other ways to do the same things, and we'll talk a little bit about costs up front. But the idea is that's what our team are there for, is to help you sort of map that out. Not so that you don't, you're not skipping things. It's about, I already know about networking and I've got CCNA and I've got this and I've got that. Therefore, I can get a credit for that subject and not have to boil a cabbage twice. That's what it's about. It's about trying to find the most sensible way that suits your personal circumstances when you're ready to study. And that's the key. I mean, everybody that comes to us and talks to us, we know they want to get a qualification at some point. We know they want to study. We know they want to progress their career. The question is, when is it right for you? How do we help you make that decision that it is right for you at this time, rather than in 12 months or 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is? You might have new babies. You might have all sorts of other stuff going on in your life. And that's what our team are there for. So as part of that, we keep talking about credit. Tell us about credit, industry credit and other credits.
Well, we have several ways to get credit. It's not just industry credit. There are four clear key ways that you can get credit for our IT Masters courses, and we'll talk about each individually. But just generally, it's for industry certifications. This is the easiest, cleanest way, is that you can get those for industry certifications you've studied within the past X number of years, for prior university study learning, for the ACS certification, which is how you use your previous work experience to gain credit, and we will talk about that soon, and for our free short courses. And I've said before, you can only get 50% of your course in credit, and this is important to making sure that you don't accidentally not plan for it ahead. So speak to our admin people if you want to talk about it. But it is really important. I think we make it easier than literally any other university I've ever seen in how to get credit for your qualifications. But these are the four main ways to do it. And it's important to plan ahead if you're looking at getting a lot of credit.
Yes, it's in fact, I'm sort of surprised that not as many people ask for credit as I would have expected, because it does save you a lot of money. A really good example of this is ACS certification. ACS, for those of you who don't know, is the Australian Computer Society. So if you've got an IT background and you're coming to us because you want to do an update and to get a better job, excuse me, then one of the ways you can actually get some good credits, i.e. 2 subject credits potentially, or 1 subject credit, is to go to ACS, join an ACS and become a member, and then ask to do their SFIA certification process. They give you a little badge at the end. The really good thing about that is it's just a simple submit your resume and do an interview with their assessors. And their interview asks you things like, well, were you a project manager? What happened on this job? Tell us about particular things you were involved in. Tell us about your role in them. Give us some examples. It's a very unthreatening conversation about the sort of things you'll have been doing in your work every day, particularly if you've got a few years experience. As a rule of thumb, if you've been working in the industry for 5 or 10 years or something like that, and you've been, progressively moving up a company seniority in some way or another, it's pretty likely you're going to get a CP certification. If you've been doing it for 3 or 4 years and you're still, at the beginning of your career, then it's pretty likely you're going to get a CT certification. There's also specific ones for cybersecurity, a CP and a CT in cybersecurity as well. So essentially, what I view this as is essentially it costs you a little bit under $800 from the ACS to do the process. Half is for the membership, half is for the certification. And for that, you're going to get a return of like between $4,000 and $8,000, either 1 or 2 subjects for free. So it's one of the best investments I've ever heard of if you've actually been in the industry for a little while. Obviously, if you're just new to the industry, this is not helpful, but those credits can make a big difference, because it means that if you're doing your master's, it's only 10 subjects, not 12 subjects. And you can spend those credits on any of the IT master's subjects. And that sort of harks back a little bit to what I was talking about before, in that I'm not sure that everybody who is eligible for credits always asks or focuses on doing things like the ACS certification, because They actually like doing our subjects and they like doing our courses. I think that's probably at the bottom of that. But industry certs is a huge area. How does industry certs work? Can you tell?
How does industry cert works? This is how we first started our qualifications 20 something years ago. Most of our courses were built on industry certifications, and you could get credit for those if you already had them. So a lot of people working in the IT industry have industry certs. They have AWS certifications or Cisco certifications or CompTIA certifications or a million others, EC Council, whatever. And the idea is if you've already got those certifications, which some of which are really hard to get, then why would you want to study a subject that introduces you to them? And we don't want to make you have to do that. So we have our credit finder so that you can see what's there. But the idea is that any recognized, industry certifications within the IT industry are something that we would hope to offer credit for, especially if it's related to our subjects. So, for instance, IT 516 is one of our subjects. It's based on the EC Council Certified Ethical Hacker exam. Hopefully, by the end of that subject, you are somewhat prepared to sit that exam. But if you've already sat it, you don't need to sit that subject, so you can get credit for it. And if you search that, industry credit precedent spreadsheet that we've got there on the website and you don't find something there, you can contact us and maybe we've left it out for a reason, or maybe we just haven't certified it yet, and maybe it could be make you eligible for a credit. But we like to recognize these sort of things. And what's helpful about it is that often industry credits expire pretty quickly because industry obviously grows and changes quite quickly. But if you get it recognized within your qualification, it means that it's part of your university qualification and you get to have something that university qualifications don't expire as the same way that, say, a CCNA does. Because if you put it on your resume that you got your master's in cybersecurity, even 20 years from now, that's still going to say master's of cybersecurity. People aren't going to be like, that was too long ago, it doesn't count. They still know that it's part of it.
Okay. But yes, it is a big thing, industry certs, and you can be comfortable knowing also that Charles Sturt University actually ask us to certify all of this stuff. We go through quite a complex process, and that's why we've got over 200 now over quite a number of years. They are reviewed regularly when the certs change as well. We do updates, we match them against the subjects, and it's a very rigorous process. So we're not sort of giving away anything for free here. We're just saying, hey, you already know this stuff. Please, you don't need to bother learning it again. Free short courses is the other way you can earn 1 credit. Doesn't matter how many short courses you do, so long as you have done more than free for free, as they used to say on the ad, you can get 1 subject credit in IT Masters courses and subjects. We have over 50 courses currently available. I think we've had 620 odd thousand enrollments over the last 10 years in them, because we get quite a lot of people enrolling from overseas as well as local students. They cover very much similar subjects to our core material, and also some outreach. So, for example, in the last couple of years, we've had courses on blockchain. We just last week finished one on AI ethics and risk and GRC. Because we intend to do more with AI over coming years. Watch this space. But they do cover, excuse me, a wide range of topics. And so it is well worth checking them out for a whole pile of reasons. One, you get to try out what we actually do, because the courses are delivered in very similar way to the way we deliver our postgraduate courses. 2, you get to practice and you find out that's actually not that hard generally. And that is a big part of it. Of course, the assignments are a little bit different because there are no assignments in the free short courses. There are just multiple choice to get through them. And that is probably the key difference. apart from, the intensity and the length and everything, but they are very similar. So it does give you a very good idea of the experience you can get from learning online. Many of our students come to us having either not done university study ever or for a very long time. And so they're a little bit apprehensive about it. This is a great way to just test drive it. You can do as many as you like, costs you nothing. There's no, hidden tiebacks anywhere along the way. We will probably ring you if you pass 3 free short courses, because then we say, well, you've done enough to qualify for a credit. Are you interested? We have people, I think the record's somewhere in the high 30s that they've actually done and passed so far. So lots of people do lots of our free short courses, which to us means that we must be doing something right. And it's just there. They're online. You can go to our website, just enroll, and then you can see the whole pile that are there. The videos are up on YouTube. When we do them live, we do four or so new ones a year. Then we encourage people to come along, participate, talk to our mentors, talk to each other online in the chat, and doing all sorts of things like that. So that is really important. Just to go back to your question there, Nandini, there's no specific credits for prior industry experience except through the ACS process, because that's essentially how you would get a credit for prior industry experience, other than having an industry certification, because that's where it gets recognized, and then we transfer that into a credit, 1 credit for a certified technician, 2 credits for a certified professional. That's the best way to do it. It's a very cheap and easy way to go around it. Okay, we are really in the home stretch now. Let's talk about fees, funding
Fees.
options.
No one loves fees, but they are real and they do exist. And unfortunately, somebody asked about full scholarships, and we do not have those, unfortunately. We do have, for Australian students, we do have fee help available, which is a good system if you're studying and you just don't want to have to pay initially. So fee help is that interest-free but CPI adjusted government loan that you pay back at tax time. It does make it easier to handle paying your qualification off while you're, doing it slowly and not having to do it all at once. You can pay all your subject fees up front, but you can pay some up front and use a fee help loan, or you can use a fee help loan for literally all of your tuition fees. While you're studying with us, credit can be applied at literally any point during your studies until you get to graduation, which means that if you are intending to study with us, but then you're going to get an industry cert while you're studying, you're like, okay, I'm going to do that while I'm studying. I'll apply that just before I graduate. Great. That's great. We love that. And one of the important things to remember is that that 10% alumni discount is applied if you're a returning student. So let's say you look at our presentation, you say, this sounds great. I want to do a Masters of Cybersecurity. I would recommend you start with a grad cert in cybersecurity, get that complete credit into the Masters of Cybersecurity, study those subjects first, and then move into the Masters and get a 10% discount, because what does it hurt to get a 10% alumni discount?
We,
Um,
I was going to say,
Go on.
we often see that people, hoard their credits until they get into the home stretch with their masters for a whole pile of reasons. One is that, it's by then you'll have done the subjects that you really want to do, and you're probably down to the last half dozen that you're not so keen on potentially. You also, by that time, you might have just run out of puff to a certain extent. That happens to some of us, and so it's a good time to think about applying your credits at that point in your course, because it does suddenly bring it to an end very quickly if you've got a couple of credits to be done. And sorry if I interrupted you,
However,
Chantel.
no, absolutely. But if I'm going to be honest about it, if you are planning on doing your masters, start with the subjects in the grad cert and then move into the masters. Like, you could maybe put 2 subjects in credit in the grad cert because you're paying full fee for those. Because unfortunately, somebody has asked about Commonwealth supported places. Unfortunately, we don't have access to those. Those are allocated by CSU, and they are not allocating them to postgraduate qualifications in the IT area at the moment,
I think
unfortunately.
it's fair to say that that is a trend across education, that most universities seem to be pushing most of their CSP places to undergraduate and having fewer available for postgraduate. We
Yeah.
certainly had, quite a few of them over the last couple of years. The other thing to think about is, does your organization give you any support that you're working with now? I used to work at a big company and you could do a master's with them and they would fully refund it or half refund it, depending on what you're doing, in the sense that they would always refund once you'd passed each of the subjects. And I think that's a reasonably common sort of practice. So feel free to ask your company about that. We're never sure because people don't necessarily tell us if their organization is helping them, but we assume that most people are getting some sort of support, even if it's just time off to study, to sit exams, to do a bit of an intensive crack at it, etc. So it
Yeah.
is really important to ask the people you work for.
And I'm going through questions as we get them, but obviously there are some questions we haven't answered yet, and we'll hopefully get to them soon. Somebody's asked about using tools like Splunk or Wireshark. I know for a fact that one of our subjects has Splunk in it. I don't know about Wireshark. Unfortunately, I'm not an IT expert. Most of you probably know more than me, so I'm not sure about Wireshark. But
I,
we do
I think
use
I think it would be used or referred to.
yeah. But we do, our aim is to have all of our subjects be really industry relevant, and we do use a lot of up-to-date software, and we try and make sure that the learning outcomes and the abstracts for our subjects aren't quite so specific, because it turns out IT tools change like the wind, and we don't want to have to update them every single week, year or month or whatever.
Yeah, I think to give you another example, one of the free short courses, an update to our old pen testing course, which has just recently been done. The final exam in that requires you to download a VM so you can actually do some of the subjects, even though it's all multiple choice. So, that sort of stuff is available in various subjects. It just depends on what it is and how hands-on it is. So we've pretty much got to the end. I can see there's a question here about explaining more relevant work experience pathways. Can you talk to that, Chantel?
Um, Well, work experience pathways is a really interesting one in that we don't have specific credit available for it, but we do have, as you said, the ACS credit. But also, if you have been working in the industry for, however many years, it is it this is a qualification where you can enter into a graduate qualification without um the need to have an undergraduate like degree. And the undergraduate degrees are really useful and they have their place. But if you've been working in the cybersecurity industry, for example, for 10, 15 years, you don't really want to go back to uni and learn what is a WAN, what is a LAN. Um, so it is, I think, a really key part of this is that we don't want you to have to study that basic information.
I think also what he was asking was what sort of work experience do you have to get to be eligible?
Um, so it's really quite variable. So the graduate certificate in computing career transition has much more, nebulous, lax requirements for entry into it. And it is definitely one of those ones where it's like, okay, if you've been working near the industry, it's fine, great. We'll make it work. And even we've used students who have barely any industry experience, but have studied our short courses. We've used that as experience to get them into the qualification. And it's just you need to start with that graduate certificate and then move into the master's.
Yeah, I think it's about your resume. You just have to have a reasonable resume that shows you've been doing things, particularly for the career transition one, because you don't even have to have necessarily full-on IT experience to go into the career transition course. That's a way of bringing you in. We recognize that you may not have it yet, but you may have spent 10 years working in an insurance company in administration or something. And that shows that you've got relevant experience, you're mature, you're able to stick to something, and you're able to do the work. And that's the basis on which we would give you access to the course. Just while we're sort of wrapping up, are there any other questions before we go? Are there
I'm just going to dump.
internships in the master's programs? Not at the moment. The internships aren't specifically in the master's. The internship for cyber will expand to the master's at some point in the near future. At the moment, it's only available in the graduate diploma. And the other internship is available in the graduate certificate of career transition, of computing career transition. So they were worth having a look at. As I said, speak to our course advisors and we'll have a look at where you're at and see what we can get for you with those things.
And there was a question earlier about which subjects have exams and which subjects have assessments. You can get access to the subject outlines, which will tell you that, or you could email our admin team and they will happily tell you which subjects have exams and which subjects just have assessments. Most of our subjects are assessment based, but occasionally we have exam based, and that's normal and fine. But if you want to email through, we can absolutely send those through to you.
Yes, I'm just scrolling back through to see other questions we may have missed. Yes, I did talk about we might need to have some sort of security clearance for the internship. That's going to be dependent upon who you're working with. And I don't know whether permanent residents are eligible for, but it depends on what sort of security clearance you need. If it's just a police check, I think that's fine. If they need you to get a official government security clearance, that might be a different thing. But I think we can talk about that. The thing to do would be to apply for the internship, and then we try and match you up with a host that meets your needs. So we try and find one that maybe didn't require that sort of clearance if you were unable to get it immediately. There's different sorts of things going on there. No, it's optional, the internship, because we assume that people will be either coming into the graduate diploma having already worked in the industry and just wanting to get a qualification, in which case, why would they want to do an internship? Or you're new to the industry and then an internship is really going to help you potentially get some work later on.
And our internship isn't compulsory in literally any of our courses. We would never make it compulsory because for the reasons that changes there.
Yeah. So if there's no more questions, I would like to thank you all very much. We've been speaking for pretty much a good hour solid, and I know there's a lot of information there. Feel free to have a look at the video tomorrow when it lands on our webpage. And feel free to email us, call us, speak to our course advisors, all of that sort of stuff if you want some more information. I've left the slide up about some of our existing students there, and these are interviews in some cases that I've done with the people, and they've found that the courses have made a bit of a difference to how they're progressing. Even particular subjects do. We've had a couple of people that said, "Oh, I really don't want to do this particular subject on professional communications," and yet when they come back afterwards and they've completed it, they say, "Actually, that was so good. I really want everybody in my company to do it." So there's education like that can be life-changing, as well as changing your particular inflection point where you are in your career at the moment. But again, thank you all for attending. We wish you all the best, and we hope to be speaking to you soon. Good night from me.
Good night, all.
Have a great time. See ya.